Welcome to Flash Frights. You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, Flash Frights. So if you were not in the audience in 1996 watching Scream when it was released, it's hard to imagine how big of a seismic shift, how big of a shakeup or reigniting boost a Scream was to the slasher genre. I mean, it comes out in 1996 after the late 80s burnout, after Jason Took Manhattan, after the Revenge of Michael Myers, that all happened in 89. You had the 90s struggles with horror with Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, Child's Play 3, Jason Goes to Hell, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, 94. And then in the dead zone of the mid-90s, the return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 95, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers in 95. And it felt like a period where studios were really just banking on the name. People will come to the theater because it's Freddy Krueger, because it's Michael Myers, because it's Jason Voorhees. And with every sequel, it felt like they were diluting the potency, the amazingness of those early films and all of those respective franchises. And then in 1996, Scream, massive shakeup, just takes all of these tired sequels, cash grabs, straight-to-video releases, and really takes a genre in slashers that was kind of limping along and gives it a big boost. It's modern, it's sharp, it's witty, it's glossy, it has a young cast, it revives this slasher genre financially, opens up the door to late 90s teen horror like I Know What You Did That Summer, Final Destination, and a movie that I want to talk about briefly today, Urban Legend.
Contemporary folklore passed on as a true story. This is what we call an urban legend.
On September 25th.
Isn't there another story about a guy with an axe hiding in a woman's backseat?
The legends.
What is he going to do next? Spider eggs and bubblegum?
Are coming to life.
Why isn't anyone listening to me?
Call 911! This girl, she could have been any one of us.
Everything you heard is true. Urban Legend. Rated R. Opens everywhere.
So by its namesake alone, you can tell Urban Legend in that wave of self-aware slasher films that reference all of those horror genre and specifically slasher genre tropes while trying to put its own twist on it, leaned heavily into the idea of urban legends, the kind of stories you could tell around a campfire or at a sleepover.
Welcome to Pendleton U, where the most popular class is Urban Legends.
Something you've heard about mixing pop rocks and soda?
Supposedly your stomach burst.
But this semester,
Voila, still alive.
the lessons are going too far.
Call 911!
From the producer of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Someone's taking all these urban legends and making them reality.
Urban Legend.
Bloody Mary.
Rated R.
And by way of a short plot synopsis, Urban Legend takes place at Pendleton University, where there's a series of grisly murders that are seemingly inspired by well-known urban legends. The story starts with this young student who's killed by a killer in the backseat. A little bit of a spoiler alert there while she's pulling over at a gas station. And it's just a take on the classic urban legend. There's someone in your backseat. And from there, you get a young Jared Leto who plays a journalist and another student, Natalie, who's played by Alicia Witt. And they begin investigating as these bodies are starting to pile up and all of them, again, killed by urban legend inspired references.
This is what we call an urban legend. The babysitter and the man upstairs.
Begin hiding initiation.
About a guy in a woman's backseat.
Urban Legend.
Someone's taking all these urban legends and making them reality.
You get the someone in the back seat. You get the Bloody Mary, like mirror legend where they try to summon a spirit. You get the don't drink soda with pop rocks urban legend that's done in a classroom setting with, of course, with a big wink and a nod to the screen. The professor is played by Robert Englund. We'll get back to that. But of course, as the body count builds up, you get suspicion among all these friends. You start looking at their past. They start kind of second guessing each other because maybe one of them could be the killer. So you get the betrayals, you get the red herrings, you get the reveals, and the whole thing is very self-referential. Again, just like Scream, Urban Legend is attempting to deconstruct all of these horror tropes. It doesn't do it as interesting, I would argue, as Scream did. It's very much by the numbers. It does feel a little bit derivative, and now it's trying to cash in on Scream exploitation and that teen slasher horror genre that's now been reinvigorated. I think the one place where Urban Legend differentiates itself is leaning into that folklore, that idea of like collective storytelling, these stories that we've all heard. So instead of going into the rules of horror movies like Scream did, this one really goes into the rules of urban legends. And that idea that these stories that we tell just to scare ourselves during a sleepover can actually be deadly. And especially when someone decides to reenact them.
You're scared, Natalie. Yeah, right.
If you haven't heard the legends,
This guy flips out.
if you don't believe the stories,
My mom still checks the back seat before getting into a car.
if you don't trust the tales,
Hello?
then you're the perfect victim. Urban Legend.
Hey, that hurt.
Rated R.
I feel like I've seen this movie at least half a dozen times. Obviously, I was a big fan of Scream when it was released, ran to the theater to watch I Know What You Did last summer. And when this was released, I wanted to catch this as well. So I did want to do a little bit of research that was all new to me, maybe new to you. I found some casting notes. Sarah Michelle Gellar was originally attached to one of the main roles, but she dropped out because she had scheduling conflicts with Buffy, which kind of gives you a sense when this movie was made. Danielle Harris, who was in Halloween 4 and 5, she's in actual Urban Legend as well. And since she had already been known to the horror audience, she winds up playing the role of Tosh, very much against type, especially if you look at her in Halloween 4 and 5, where she's playing this very sort of young and innocent girl. She is certainly not young and innocent in Urban Legend, let me tell you that. Again, mentioned Jared Leto, and he plays this journalist, and I think later on in the interviews I saw he kind of downplayed, even maybe disowned his involvement in the movie, which is a little disappointing to hear because, again, this is a movie that is very much a product of its time. And speaking about being a product of its time, you have a character named Brenda, who's played by actress Rebecca Gayheart, who's probably best known as the Noxzema girl, and she was also in Beverly Hills 90210. And her character is named Brenda Bates, so obviously a nod to Cycle's Norman Bates. And like I mentioned earlier, we also get Robert Englund, who appears as Professor Wexler, who teaches, of course, folklore and urban legend on the campus. Best known, of course, for playing Freddy Krueger, signature role in A Nightmare on Elm Street and all the different Freddy movies. And because it's the 90s, we also get Joshua Jackson, Dawson's Creek and Fringe, and tons of other television roles. And we also get America's Pie's very own Tara Reid, a very familiar face in the late 90s, early aughts, teen party horror adjacent comedies. All of this kind of serving to give you a snapshot where horror was, where these teen ensemble casting movies were at, and what Urban Legend kind of feels like. So not a movie that reinvents the wheel, but it captures the moment. It's after Scream, so you get movies like Urban Legend that are a bit derivative. And even though they are trying to do their own thing, they do wind up feeling a bit imitative, a bit genre homage to Scream, which just successfully does a better job of homaging all the movies that came before it, all those 80s slasher films. I guess probably the best thing is that, again, this decides to lean into the folklore horror, urban legend horror. That's probably one of the cool things, one of the touchstone for this films that makes it worth a watch. Yes, you get the cool kills, you get the school paranoia, you get the betrayal, the red herrings, you get all of that with a bunch of very attractive teenage actors. But the whole thing just works fairly well for a fun late night movie watch. If you've already watched Scream, and I know what you did last summer, pop on Urban Legend. You won't be disappointed.